The best outros are sort of like making bread. You add salt, yeast, flour, and yes, I'm going to stretch this metaphor as thinly as possible. So thin that you may not think it's relevant. But my question to you is, are you granary or are you nutty? Number 1, the summary. It's a bit like rye bread. Now, rye bread has a reputation for being slightly more nutrient dense. So what I liken this to is a longer style outro where everything is in there from what you've just seen. So it's almost like you're watching the whole content again at the end. Therefore, it's quite long. So, and maybe you delve into things that you've discovered, the things like that. So you're adding value the whole time, therefore more nutritious. So yeah, the rye bread, good for a certain thing, makes it more thorough. The downsides are that the engagement could drop off quite a lot, but having the engagement so low at the end, you could look at that and think that you failed, but actually it might be that your audience is so captivated that they stayed right until the last second, in which case does that mean that actually the people you have got are completely on your side? They are listening to every second that you have to say, and therefore you might be able to sell something separately with it. We've all got to be paid by YouTube or around our YouTube campaign. Might this be a way of doing it? Number 2, the bigger picture. Whole wheat bread, possibly the most well-rounded of all the breads, and this particular outro is that you're talking about what you've just discovered, how that affects you, how that affects the audience, how it affects your target audience, what has happened in the past to get to this point, what might happen in the future. So it's touching on all the elements, past, present and future, in order to tell that message to your vital fan base. It's really good for morals, moralistic stories, and this is those channels where I say if you've got something which you really want to say, this could be a really good, a nice, well-rounded way to end a video. The problem is with this is that, again, we're coming back down to the engagement takes a knock. People don't necessarily want to hear about what they've just seen before. So, and this could also last quite a while. This could last 2-3 minutes, depending on what you've just discovered and seen. So this isn't highly recommended necessarily because people want to make up their own minds within YouTube. But again, it could be really good for building other things up, Patreon, all of that sort of stuff. It could be really good. But again, your engagement takes a knock and you haven't got that huge audience that maybe you once did during your timeline. Number 3, the future, sourdough. Yeah, I did actually Google what the future of bread was, and sourdough seems to be the thing. I don't know, that's what Google tells me. So you know how every rubbish interviewer at the end of the interview says, so what's the future doing? What are you planning for the future?
What's the best kind of firework to buy?
Wouldn't you like to know, weather boy?
This is that in YouTube generic video form. In order for this method to work, you have to reflect on everything that you've seen and then say exactly what this is going to be knocking on to, what is going to happen because of what you've just seen, and it's fully focused on the future. I'm a futurist, I love futurism, but the general public doesn't. It fascinates me, but that's each to their own. And it can also be good for comments and engagement to get people to say, you can ask the question at the end, what do you think of this? What do you think of this method? Again, the problem is with this, as I mentioned twice before now, is engagement can take a knock. The end of a video is so important to get right, and unless your video is all about futurism, you may struggle with that. If you're a big personality where people just want to hear your thoughts, this might work. But the problem is, the dichotomy of this is that if your video has been pitched to your audience as a factual video, or we're going to explore X, Y, and Z, and we're going to look at how this works with whatever, and then so you then look at that video, you then visit that place, you then see that person, you interview the person, whatever your genre is, and then at the end of that, you're talking about fiction. That is a hard barrier to cross. Try and stick with what you've seen. Maybe hint at it, but nothing. But don't go into it because it's all rubbish unless your video is all about futurism specifically. Because again, engagement is just going to struggle, man. It's just going to struggle. Number 4, the repeater. Onion bagel. An onion bagel repeats, isn't it? Yeah. Bullet pointing what you've seen, what you've just experienced as a viewer, is quite interesting. It's an interesting way of doing it. You could argue there's no point watching the video. You could argue just watch the end, because you've bullet pointed everything that you have learned from it and what potentially you've, as an audience member, you've learned. So actually, there's one YouTuber who's an audio guy who puts a slate at the beginning, because he does audio tech and things, what his findings are, and he even puts it down at 19 minutes and 12 seconds is my look at this particular microphone. And that's quite an interesting technique to do. What's interesting with this is that your retention graph might be upside down. It might be low at the beginning, really a long U shape, and then it peaks more towards the end, which is completely opposite of everything else we've encountered. It's a technique, I guess. It's not one for me, but again, every channel to their own. I wouldn't recommend the repeater. Number 5, the continuation. Flaxseed bread. I don't know, I'm running out of breads at this point. Flaxseed bread is often the source of the squits. The continuation of a video is really, really important. Session duration is such a pivotal stat, and engagement is so high within YouTube that I think you'll find this video quite interesting. See what I did there? Yeah, I know, we've all got to do it. Just do this method. It works better, and YouTube like you. They will like you. It takes a while. I know. It's tough. You'll get there. Just choose this one.